begin. Oh, I take your pocket when I see you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host for tonight's Hall of Fame, Salsa!
Alright, how's it going tonight, everyone? I would like to say, welcome to the World Wrestling Hall of Fame. We've got a pretty good show tonight. Let's say, first things first, I would like to welcome you and apologize for the show we have tonight. If you happened to hear before, I'm sorry for everything I said before, but it also didn't happen. Don't bring it up. I'm going to cut the S word. We're going to get right to it, right to what's important. I would like to call up the first person, the first nomination. We have Goldeneye.
Oh, damn.
All right. I mean, well, I'm everyone's favorite N64 game. I'm literally an N64 box talking into a microphone, but you know what? Here goes. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It took me quite a while in order to find the person who I wanted to induct for the LOL Wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, with the recent April Fool's joke, I could even induct an Eevee into a Wrestling Hall of Fame because it is now wrestling canon, but you know what? Here goes. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of a story on the history of my induction, and with a little bit of analysis, just to spice things up a little bit, just to make it different from a normal, analysis, or just a little bit of something different. The scene is a WWE pay-per-view. D-Generation X, and it's important to note this is post the move to PG, was cutting a promo, and Shawn Michaels was attempting to fix a poll as to who will be the special guest referee in their upcoming match that was done on LOLWrestling.com. The options were Mr. McMahon, who was feuding with him, Jonathan Coachman, who was also feuding with him, and Eric Bischoff. And all of these would have been great inductions for the LOL Wrestling Hall of Fame. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to induct any one of those. Mr. McMahon has done some amazing things for the wrestling business, along with some things that could ultimately hurt the product in some people's eyes, and he's provided us with some amazing laughs over the years. Coachman would have been great too. His work, both in the field of wrestling and sports, has led a lot to the pro wrestling product nowadays, partnerships with ESPN, and of course, Eric Bischoff, an absolute legend in wrestling. I mean, it was ironic that because he had given a workshoot on the WWE about a year prior while also saying, and I quote, "Without the NWO, there would be no DX." And then a few months later, the WWE fan base decided to vote him in as the special guest referee, and he interfered in the match right after he made a book called Controversy Creates Cash. Yes, the one with the $sign in the title. And then he got a segment with Big Dick Johnson. Yeah, remember him? And then he left. This induction isn't about any of those people that I just mentioned. In fact, getting back to where we were before, DX commented on his book saying that Bischoff thinks he's controversial. And, while H may have been lying about this, said that Bischoff didn't think that DX even knew the meaning of the word controversial. This is who they were trying to get as their special guest referee pick, mind you. Shawn Michaels, in response, absolutely flew off the handle. He was shocked that someone, let alone the former president of WCW, who watched DX drive a tank to the WCW arena in the middle of the Monday Night Wars, didn't think that DX was controversial. Mainly Michaels more than H. Triple H added to it. Michaels even mentioned he was the guy to put Bret Hart in the sharpshooter, and that H married what's-her-name. See, I have to pause. I've been lying about this. I'm not inducting DX either. Both would have been very, very worthy of the induction. Because Shawn Michaels then turns to a guy working on the sound and asks his name. The man replies that his name is Stan. And this is who I'm inducting. Shawn Michaels proceeds to super kick him and yell that he just kicked Stan, and then proceeds to super kick everyone else down the hallway. And so, for becoming one of the best, dare I say it, memes of the 2000s era of the WWE, and something that I've kept in my memory for close to a decade, and will probably keep it in my memory for the rest of my life. See, I just inducted Stan. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good.
Wait, what do you mean I just inducted Ty Dillinger? No, I didn't want to induct Ty Dillinger. I wanted to induct Stan. No!
All right, after a wonderful induction of Ty Dillinger, I would like to take a 10-second pause as we think about what we have just done. Please wait for whatever I'm going to rig up. Hey, come on now. 10.
Oh, sorry.
We're at 2. I did 11. So now that we're done with all that nonsense, I would like to thank both Goldeneye. I would like to thank, what was his name? Grant Kirkhope for making the soundtrack. I would like to thank Ty Dillinger and Stan, which let's all hope Stan comes back at some point in time. And maybe he will be paired with Curse of Greatness Angelo Dawkins. Is he getting inducted tonight? Who knows?
Who knows?
What I do know is I know a lot of segues for things, and they're all good. So, that being said, I would like to say welcome to the co-host of our Sunday pay-per-view shows, an ice skater. I hear that he's good at it, maybe. Something about a tiger. Eating a tiger? There's a possibility he's a tiger. I'd like to welcome Samoan Driver to the artificial stage.
Jesus Christ, what the hell did I get myself into? Well, I'm not even gonna shoot the shit. Let's just go ahead and get into this. The guy I'm here to induct into the inaugural class of the LOL Wrestling Hall of Fame. We gotta tell this in the proper fashion because his backstory, his history, is that of some of the greatest myths of human history. 2,000 years ago, the wrestling gods wished to put on an event so grand that it would shake the very firmament of reality. So for 6 days and 7 nights, they did book such matches as Ric Flair versus the Great Muta in a first Blade match, the wrestling debut of Antonio Inoki, where he was promptly bitch-slapped and pinned immediately afterward, and the third retirement farewell of one Terry Funk as he faced the Minotaur and a double hell, exploding barbed wire, red hot iron anal poker, brazen bull, labyrinth death match. Those crazy fucking Japanese. For such an extravagant event, the gods did need a referee of divine conception, one truly worthy to officiate the celestial spectacle. But sadly, Lil Nate was still but a sparkle in the eye of Ric Flair's 7th ex-wife. So they approached the intergalactic heavyweight champion Rasslor. Yet in a stroke of bad luck, the legend was recovering from an injury caused by an unfortunate flexing accident that left his left pectoral muscle as loose as Missy Hyatt's baby maker. And so the gods did go to the primordial pool with one sole purpose, to birth the perfect referee. Zeus's mighty thunder, the celestial beauty of Horus, the wisdom of Odin, the alcohol tolerance of Dionysus, and the swagger of the rap god Kanye West. Combining these essences into the primordial void, they were but mere moments from creating the greatest referee who ever lived. Unfortunately, Dionysus, in his drunken hubris, inadvertently added fluid runoff from one of Caligula's many great gay gangbangs, thus tainting the concoction of giving birth to the second greatest referee, the gentleman I'm here to induct this evening. And the gods cast him from the aether, sending him through time and space to create a persona worthy enough to be accepted by the gods of old as the referee would officiate the greatest wrestling card ever told. It was then that he met an ascended broken master who showed him what he needed to complete his task, the attire of the color of the lifeblood that ran through his veins. And as a gift, the broken one gave him a belt of such color, the only thing made by the hands of mortals that could keep his divine swagger under control. And so he did travel with his broken mentor throughout all of time and space, refereeing matches all over the cosmos. He was present at the first tag team Apocalyptica, where the heavenly bodies were super kicked by the Bucks of Youth with such violent passion that they truly became heavenly bodies, constellations in the midnight sky. He refereed Abraham Lincoln versus two bears, one male and one female, which ended only when all three competitors were counted out due to exhaustion and pure sexual satisfaction. And I would also like to add that he would have called the fated clash between myself and Swerveface if that basic bottom Brit bong bitch would ever grow the balls and accept my challenge. But all that aside, they finally traveled throughout time and space until they found themselves in Hollywood, where our inductee was cast as an extra in the great film The Wizard of Oz. During this time, he did give Judy Garland a dicking so hot and so stern that he was gifted tennis shoes as red and vibrant as the shoes Judy wore in the film.
Oh my god.
And with these articles of clothing in hand, he traveled back to the gods of old, who gazed upon their prodigal bastard son, and they all wept tears of joy, for what stood before them was the greatest referee who ever lived. And he did officiate the greatest wrestling card ever booked, which was so great that even Jesus came back from the dead to watch the spectacle. And so, completing his divine task, our referee left the Celestial Arena, this Shippodrome, and went on to referee in All Japan, Super World of Sports, War, and finally New Japan Pro Wrestling, where he referees to this day. Now, no Wrestling Hall of Fame would be complete without one of the greatest referees of all time, so it is an honor and a privilege to induct this man into the 2018 LOL Wrestling class of the Hall of Fame. This man is Hiroyuki Umino, but he is known simply as Red Shoes Uno. So congratulations, Red Shoes. You truly deserve this. You great, glorious son of a bitch.
Alright, okay.
I have to applaud someone shoes that are red as me.
I'm not gonna disagree. I'm not gonna say it was bad, but I'm mad at myself for not picking it up the second you mentioned the fucking or the red slippers. I was like,
yeah, same.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I
Single
had to
tear.
take a second. You remember
Lore
that,
so
you remember
rich.
That, do you remember that rumor that there was like the one dwarf that hung himself?
Yeah.
That was at the end of that, realizing everything that came together. That was mastercraft. That was good.
That's rich lore.
Someone's gonna shoot you for that speech, dude.
Yeah.
I can't even get my.
Well, I'm not
fucking
going to be
house
booked.
Oh man. I don't even know how to introduce this man. Some would call him the backbone of these shows. Some would call him the man who begrudgingly writes the fucking cards out on FujiBet every week and is trying to pawn it off on other people reasonably, because he also enjoys hosting a website, also enjoys setting up all this fucking audio equipment every week, also enjoys having a full-time job. This man can do about anything except for figure out where that last speech was going. Let's talk about Red. Who do you have for us?
I mean, I have like 11,000 songs, and that's the only one I know that has red in the title. Seriously. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We are here to induct who we feel are worthy and deserving to be inducted into the inaugural LOL Wrestling Hall of Fame. We're looking tonight at athletic ability, showmanship, memorable moments, but ultimately, this decision of who we induct comes down to one thing: our own opinion. Opinions, it is famously said, are like dicks. Everyone has one except women. You shouldn't force them into someone else's mouth, and when someone cuts it off, it hurts. In wrestling, we cannot talk about opinions without talking about the most valued opinion out there. This man has garnered praise not just from the internet wrestling community, his subscribers and readers, but also from the boys in the back, the wrestlers themselves, those who lace up their boots and then eagerly wait to read about the art in his newsletter. I am, of course, talking about Dave Meltzer.
No.
David Alan Meltzer was born in October 24th, 1959 in New York, which was unfortunate as his family had decided to settle in San Jose, California. It took Dave 4 buses and 3 days to travel back to his family. It was on this bus journey that the barely sentient, just-born journalist got his first taste for traveling on the road. He traveled to names synonymous with wrestling: Nashville in Tennessee, Memphis in Mississippi, Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, and of course the soon-to-be WCW heartland of Altanta, Georgia. According to his parents, Dave had a difficult childhood. He grew up not knowing whether his parents were faces or heels, and this distressed the boy. No matter how hard his dad beat him or how many toys his mother bought him, Dave was insistent that he didn't really believe him. Dave jokingly refers to a time when his mother attempted a turn and cut a promo about the untidiness of his room. He said the content was awful and the shrieking did nothing for the build to the actual beatdown from his father that he saw coming a mile away.
Jesus.
It was at school that Dave's early interest in both fighting and reporting began. One day, a fight broke out during recess. Dave was not a participant, but one of the early observers to the fight. Others who had not seen the fight later asked Dave about the fight, and he would go into great detail about the various moves and action points of the fights. Upon hearing one of these retellings, the editor of the school newspaper offered Dave a section on the newspaper to report on the various fights that had occurred in the school. Dave jumped at the opportunity. However, Dave went one step further. Rather than just reporting on the fights, Dave began grading the fights, taking cues from the Michelin star rating for food. 1 star was considered a good fight, 2 stars and above average, and 3 stars was worth skipping class for. This was also a time where Dave's penchant for insider knowledge began to blossom. Dave would begin enlisting members of the school to listen out for rumors or whisperings of potential fights breaking out. Soon the young Meltzer was taking in rumors from sources ranging from the students to parents to even the principal. All the details were listed in the school newspaper of these rumored feuds, amongst the reportings and ratings of the fights. However, soon this reporting would come back to haunt Dave. There were some rumors that would cut too deep. Upon hearing of a rumor of a big fight between the school's 2 biggest bullies, Dave slipped out of class and rushed to the location to get first coverage. There he found the 2 bullies waiting, not to fight each other, but him. Dave has never said what happened, but it's most likely that he was beaten to death by the 2 kids, then resuscitated, beaten to death again, resuscitated twice more, and then had his underpants pulled tight up to his rectum. Embarrassed and unable to walk, Dave put down his pen. Dave graduated high school and moved to San Jose State University to study journalism. Dave was no longer interested in the petty squabbles amongst peers. Dave wanted to produce highbrow, cutting-edge / the peep show journalism, the kind of journalism that would get his name in all the big American papers at the time. This all went out the window, however, when the National Wrestling Alliance came to town and Dave got hooked on the drug known as professional wrestling. Professional wrestling, otherwise known by its street name, Canvas Cocaine, had been peddled by carnival folk since the dawn of carnivals. Becoming less of a sideshow attraction and more of a traveling sport, the National Wrestling Alliance banded together several promoters of the sport in order to create something that was truly worth splitting up and demolishing in about 5 years' time. Dave Meltzer was asked to attend the show by the future frontman of Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan. Corgan was 11 years old at the time and invited Dave along so he could purchase beer on a fake ID. Corgan, by all accounts, was a lightweight, and despite Dave watering down the alcohol, Billy was blind drunk by intermission and had no idea what had happened. After taking the 11-year-old musician home, Dave decided to do the young boy a favor and wrote down everything that happened in the matches and leave his old star ratings underneath each description. Despite that first wrestling review being eaten by Corgan in the middle of the night, Meltzer could not be stopped. Here was finally his calling in life, a sport that he could follow and write about. He would become the man that would watch and document it all, and so was born the Wrestling Observer. Much like his early years, Meltzer followed the NWA on buses going from state to state, cataloguing the matches and ranking them. Then after the shows, he'd ply the wrestlers with beer and food in order to talk to them and find out some of their darkest secrets. I'm sure everyone here can remember the kinds of stories that Meltzer broke in the 80s, but I'll recall just a few of them here. Richard Dargoon is now being billed as Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in a rib after he claimed he didn't need travel expenses and dove into a nearby canal attempting to light his own farts to propel himself across the water. Ken Patera has been booted from the National Wrestling Alliance's tour of Oklahoma after dyeing his hair green and blacking up. Jesse Ventura confused promoters last week by saying he wanted to work a program with himself, otherwise he'd quit. He feels that it's ridiculous that Jesse isn't being given the opportunities he deserves in the company. And of course, the most gripping and groundbreaking story of them all, Honky Tonk Man can't actually play guitar. In November 1986, Dave Meltzer hit upon his first stumbling block as a journalist. He was watching a match between the Andersons and the Rock and Roll Express. The match was enthralling for Dave. He'd seen the match the previous night inside a cage, but now the cage was gone and he could actually see what was going on in the ring. The wrestling was incredible. Up until now, he'd been grading on the Michelin system with 1 to 3 stars, but this match surpassed everything he had seen up until this point. That evening, Dave took to drinking, and after 3 shots of vodka, explained his predicament to his neighbor at the bar. Seeing his 3 shots, the man coolly ordered another shot of vodka, downed it and placed it with Dave's 3 and said, 1, 2, 3, pausing for effect. 4. At that moment, Dave had realized what this meant. For years, he had been bound by the restraint of the rating system of cooking, but this was wrestling. If belief could be suspended, so could the rating system. 4 stars, a revelation. He shook the hand of his neighbor and asked him his name. The man smiled, adjusted his necktie, picked up his tennis racket, saying, "The name is James E. Cornette, but you can call me Jim." The next few years were a renaissance for the Wrestling Observer. Up until now, Dave had simply been writing these notes, reviews, and rumors for himself. But then he remembered back in school there was a newspaper that would distribute his reviews around. Dave decided to implement this idea for only his own material and called it the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Armed with his 4-star, Meltzer revolutionized the world of reviewing. Even famed reviewer for films Roger Ebert picked up this 4-star review technique, saying in 2003, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house? Get out, get out. I'm calling the police. Barbara, there's a man in the house with a dictaphone." In 1990, Japan was discovered by wrestling fans. Whilst fans in America were largely tired of Hulk Hogan putting himself over, Meltzer had discovered there was a bloke in Japan who'd been doing it for 30 years and bitch-slapping anyone who told him no. This motherfucker even went as far to tell Saddam Hussein to give back the Japanese soldiers he took hostage. Apparently, Saddam shat himself at the thought of having to take a fall-away slam from Antonio Inoki. Dave tried to fly to Japan, but he lacked the velocity, so he had to take an airplane instead. There, Dave was aghast with the quality of wrestling. He had become used to the over-the-top pantomime style in America. Here was something that took him back to his childhood. Hard-hitting, strong style, grunting. This was hard for him to stomach. The match quality was topping even that of the 4 stars he had seen. Struggling to keep himself from vomiting, he called his friend in the States, Jim Cornette. He told him how 4 stars wasn't enough. Jim told him what he needed to hear. He could go one further. 5 stars. And so it was. The 5-star rating system was born. Dave would continue to award 5 stars to matches through the early part of the 90s. With this new rating, he had unearthed a new level for professional wrestling to attain. Fans and wrestlers alike began to hang on his every word. Dave could do no wrong. He was in high regard, and the road looked to be paved with gold. June 3rd, 1994, Budokan Hall. Dave Meltzer witnessed the match that would spell disaster for himself, though he did not know it. Misawa and Kawada were having what could be described by many as a 4-star match for the All Japan Pro Triple Crown title. But then the near falls started. Both men began hitting each other with hard-hitting forearms and power maneuvers. Both men kicked out of finishers and lariats. This usually silent crowd was caught in a rapturous explosion of screams and applause. Meltzer was caught up in the moment. He didn't even think and awarded the match 6 stars. Meltzer thought nothing of it until the phone rang in his home. But the sound and spit coming out of the receiver, it could only be Jim Cornette. "You stupid cunt," he said in his Kentucky drawl. "You stupid motherfucker, stupid fucker, mother. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? 5 stars, motherfucker, 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star, no stars, but 6 stars, you stupid motherfucker. No, don't you ever do that again." To this day, Dave refuses to talk about the phone call. His rating system had been broken. He had gone too far. 5 was clearly the balancing point, and the rapturous moment he'd experienced in Japan was never to be seen again. He resolved to keep all of his ratings to the 5-star mark and vowed not to break pro wrestling again. When he returned back to America, he discovered, however, to his horror, that his place as wrestling's beloved journalist had been scooped by a younger man, Brian Alvarez. Brian Alvarez was a pro wrestler in training who began Figure 4 Weekly as a tribute to Ric Flair. Brian was younger than Dave and had already adopted the 5-star system. Unlike Dave, however, he had kept the scale but expanded upon it by introducing the idea of a negative star rating. Brian would even go as far to rate matches with fractals, quarter stars, half stars, 3/4. The true unbalanced genius of this man was clear to Dave. Brian was competition. He needed to crush. Dave transformed his written style into a radio show, going on the air to discuss wrestling with the masses. He cut out the middleman made of paper and birthed a new man made of radio waves and sound. He was now a voice for the masses, taking phone calls, taking interviews, and playing awkward segue songs between them all. Dave was keeping a keen eye on technology and noticed a new emergence, the internet. Before then, the internet was specifically designed for wrestling fans who watched WCW, but Dave envisioned a website where all the pro wrestling news and thoughts could be found. Unfortunately, Brian got there first, implementing what is known today as the Board, a cesspool forum of thoughts and exposition about wrestling that is more wrong than the Dustin Diamond sex tape. Or possibly Drake Bell's penis, judging by tonight. Dave had a cunning plan. If he couldn't beat his competition, he would buy it out and merge it together into one website, Wrestling Observer Online. In a piece of domain name registration genius, the likes not seen since PennIsland.com, Dave planned to set up the website W Online, the O of Observer being combined into the O of Online. The whole announcement was set to take place on a simulcast of Wrestling Observer Live and Figure 4 Weekly, when out of nowhere, Brian Alvarez appeared in the ring and said, "The domain does say W Online, but it now says F4W Online." The invasion had begun. Brian started covering his hobby of mixed martial arts, and Dave was forced to follow along, covering the first UFC. Dave thought that maybe by training in the gym and lifting weights, he could maybe muscle away Brian from the helm of the website, but it was not to be, as Brian surrounded himself with larger and larger men as protection. There were clear signs that Dave began to devalue the product. The match had soured his taste for wrestling, and he too began to grade matches negatively into negative star ratings. At the height of this, Dave actually gave a coked-up 30-year-old and a 50-year-old wearing face paint a negative 5-star rating for a less than 2-minute match. Meltzer was clearly going off the rails. He began attending pro wrestling guerrilla shows, initially because he thought they were some sort of military outfit that he could bribe to assassinate Alvarez. Bryan, however, was too clever for this and retired from wrestling at the age of 17, firmly cementing himself as the leader of the wrestling journalism world. Washed up and dehydrated, Dave Meltzer sat down to watch Wrestle Kingdom 11, January 4th, 2017. The main event, Okada versus Omega, went 46 minutes. In a truly desperate attempt to regain control, Meltzer did the one thing he promised never to do. He rated the match 6 stars. Immediately, the internet exploded into a confused rage. Most of them had not been born in 1993, were not prepared for this second coming of the 6-star match. Bryan tried to maintain control, but the engine can take it, Captain. Meltzer was deranged, uncontrollable, unhinged. The phone was off the hook with Jim Cornette turning beetroot red, trying to get through to the muscled, mullet-haired man. June 11th came, and not satisfied with the damage he'd already done to the industry, he rated the rematch between Okada and Omega 6.25 stars. The internet had already collectively shat itself 6.25 months before. The bowels were empty and there was nothing left to shit out. Wrestling was ruined, clearly. This deranged 56-year-old man had taken a perfectly good system, and what was good and bad in wrestling had been trashed to pieces. Wrestling was in tatters. Luckily, 6 months before, another great mind had a contingency plan. Much like in the times of depravity there are standby currencies, there was a standby rating system. On December 12th, 2016, it was test-driven for the first time by Mick Foley, announcing the official valuation of Sami Zayn at 1 Eva Marie. Although Sami contested its valuation, it was clear wrestling had been given a second chance. And ladies and gentlemen, it is for that reason it is my honor to induct into the Hall of Fame the greatest rating system of all time, Eva Marie! Eva would like to be here to accept her award, but she's had a wardrobe malfunction. She's very tired and she's gone on holiday, so I'm very sorry.
Dazzling.
Wow, that was, like, if they did that speech to debut Eva Marie, I might actually do it this time around. That was really good. That was a good speech. Appreciate all that. I'm gonna do something kind of unexpected. I'm gonna ask if I can go off script for a second.
Whoa!
Try to do my own little nomination.
What do you think this is? Is this Scott
do you
Steiner and Goldberg?
Is this a shoot promo or something?
I'm gonna
Whoa!
be shooting. These are this is definitely a shoot promo.
Go ahead, Salsa. I will allow this.
Okay. Well, I'd like to first talk about what wrestling means to me.
Okay.
For me, wrestling is one of those things that you can take somebody to a show, and even if they've never seen wrestling before, they'll have a good opinion of it afterward. And I think it's important when you think about wrestling today, you got to think about where people's eyes are concentrated. And that's definitely the WWE. And, I'm not going to say that it's the greatest promotion in the world, but for me as a kid, growing up, my favorites were, it's people like Chris Benoit and like Edge and like Chris Jericho, all of these guys that were just striving to, get their spot and stuff like that. But you even have to look at like in a company like WWE, where the head of the company is at that point like a 50, 60-year-old white guy. There's not a lot of opportunities for people of other races. So when I'm talking about somebody who I really respect, I'm talking about somebody who overcame the odds. They've had a long career in like the wrestling circuit. They debuted in the year 2000. Okay,
Wow.
same year as Cesaro, who was now a tag champ, multiple-time tag champ. They have decorated him with belts. Naruki Doi, legendary Dragon Gate performer, legendary performer on another level at big shows. Brock Lesnar, okay? David's Flair and Arquette. He had a long career. It ended abruptly in the 2000s when WWE was forced to take him off the air due to him getting enough momentum to essentially take over the show, as well as numerous injuries that he got due to, just unfortunate genetics. I'd like to welcome the first interracial icon the WWE had, the first Black Sun story, to my knowledge, in WWE. My favorite comedy skit that they got away with somehow, the hand that Mae Young gave birth to.
Oh shit! Hands Henry.
And Henry.
That is
Nice.
a welcome addition to the Hall of Fame.
What I
Thank you,
want to ask
Salsa.
is, they did the hand.
Yeah.
Why did they have to go back to it? They could have just swept it under the rug, but there's a big guy in a hand suit now.
You
And so the
can't
hand's grown up.
you can't sweep a hand under the rug because it shows up as like a big bulge. You have to put it in the bin or something.
If you
he's
sweep it
gonna
under
be-
the rug and you keep feeding it, that's what I feel like they did.
He's gonna be in
That's just
NXT
a
in like
big
5 years.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
actually like that.
Yeah,
Can you imagine the type of moves he would do? He could get you in like the strongest bear hug ever.
and could take a powerbomb like a motherfucker. Anyway, let us
Okay.
move on.
I'm sorry for the interruption.
No,
fellas.
it's good, man. It's good, man. It's
But-
good.
Speaking of shoot promos, I would like to welcome someone. Let's say co-writer of shoot promo. Okay. I'm reading this, a galore commentator for WrestleMania. The producer in Armbar Error Society. Sin Cara's #1 fan. Loves him. Wishes the lights would come back. Cobra T, Washington.
All right. You can turn that off because I got a few things that I want to say. Now, we've had a really nice night of scripted speeches, but, and for all that rigmarole, I mean, I very much doubt that you will manage to pull all of that, out of your armpit or wherever kids these days pull things out of. I have not written anything for this. I wanted to stay true for the induction. Because I got a lot of things on my plate, a lot of things on my chest, and a lot of things on my mind. I'm going to get them all out right now. But first, I want to take you all back to October 27th, 1996. Picture, if you will, the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Paradise, Nevada. Many of you may recall Halloween Havoc, old WCW pay-per-view series. Lots of people clamor for its return because we're wrestling fans and we like old shit, and that's all we like. And boy, did this pay-per-view have some old shit. Let me tell you something about Halloween Havoc 96. See, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you, I'm inducting the last half hour of this pay-per-view. Some backstory, my friends. First, the NWO, running wild, baby. And at this time, Hulk Hogan decided to show up in the arena wearing a wig. Yeah. And so the entire night, we're seeing segments with Hulk Hogan. And I'm talking like legendary segments. You want to talk about a pay-per-view I'll never forget? Well, this is definitely one. Segments where Hulk Hogan is just chilling in the crowd wearing this god-awful weave. He has like a mullet. It's like if you took like the big hair in Fire Pro Returns and put it over the long hair. It's real bad. And so the main event for this pay-per-view, my friends, Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan for the championship. This is what they've been building to all night. And it's pretty incredible because I just want to say, you can talk about your WrestleMania entrances. You can talk about Charlotte in her golden robe, or you can talk about Asuka's when the acid trip hits masks. You can talk about, Steph and H doing the synchronized water spit. You want to talk about greatest special entrances of all time? Picture this. Randy Savage, dressed up in the red and the yellow. Because, by the way, this was Slim Jim Halloween Havoc 1996. You can tell because the Slim Jims were all over the turnbuckles and the ring. Randy Savage, one of my personal favorites, comes out, struts onto the stage, points at an inexplicable monster truck that's just standing there, and he walks back to the ring. That's it. That's his entrance. It's real good. Out comes Hogan. NWO for life, Voodoo Child, all of that. Does the thing with the belt. And this match, this huge grudge match at Slim Jim Halloween Havoc 96, ends in about 5 minutes when Hulk Hogan defeats Randy Savage, I believe following some interference by the Giant. Yeah, I may be wrong on that one, but again, I didn't write anything down. But you know who else didn't write anything down? The man who came out after Hulk Hogan won that match. Rowdy Roddy Piper making his WCW debut. He walks to the ring, he grabs a mic, and he starts shooting. And he's shooting. And he's shooting. And while I'm talking about shooting red, what the fuck has happened to LOL Wrestling? What the hell happened to
hang on. Hold on now, man. Hey, fucking... All right, hang on. Let's just cut his mic. Well, that's an interesting point there. Thank you very much, guys. And we'll see you next week on Monday Nitro. It's going to be a great show. Let's see what happens.
Ooh.
Well, folks, looks like
Bravo, sir. Bravo, sir.
Does actually look like he has gotten it all off of his chest. Thank God.
I like how people thought that was real. We actually did a better job than WCW there for a second. That was...
I don't know when they're like, I want to hear what he has to say. let him talk. I want to hear it.
Okay.
It might be a good idea. You never know. That dude can be. It's like a CM Punk moment. He's talking about a doofus stepson or doofus son-in-law, and they're trying to cut his mic and everything like that. More power to the people, man.
More power,
every man. Thank you. Thank you
Brilliant
for that
stuff,
criticism.
Cobra.
And I agree, Red. You need to change a lot of things. I don't know what, but something. Damn it. Okay, so I can't believe that we have absolutely torn through this Hall of Fame. We gave you people so many inductions, and it looks like we're at the most important one of the night, obviously, because it's going on last. We have a man who hacked the FBI, and then when they came to his house, he hacked their phones and their Google Glass to say, "Get the fuck away from me." The Maleficent matchmaker. The brains behind WrestleMania. There's no B in WrestleMania. I just like the alliteration. Let's talk to Dark Matrix. Who do you have?
In before he's still cooking.
I am not cooking. Hit my music.
Oh, sorry. Music. Hit my music. All right, hang on.
All right, cut the music now. It's fine. You blew it, Red. Just like everything else, you blew it. I was sitting in the gorilla position. I was ready. I was full. I was going to come out, and I was going to give the best speech in the world. Now, after Matt's speech, I wasn't sure if I was going to follow that, other than, pretty much being able to do that with ease. But before I begin, shout out to Evie for being the first AES superstar to make it to the big leagues. I think that deserves a big round of applause. And fuck you all for not inducting me before I got here. Now, when Red asked me to induct someone into the World Wrestling Hall of Fame, I had to sit in solace for a moment to think about what that meant. I needed to select someone who had not only a stellar wrestling career and was not just important to wrestling history, but also important to the small slice of the wrestling community that we call home. In the dark of my room, staring out at the stars in the heavens, despite me having a roof. That was off the top of my head. You can see how good this is going.
I was hoping for a second paragraph.
Yeah.
No, you know what? There's only one paragraph, and it's one big long one. Anyway, so there I am, sitting there, just looking at the stars and thinking, who could I possibly induct into the Hall of Fame? And I came onto a name. A man who united communities across the world. A man who has main evented more shows than most of his peers can attest to. A man who is one of the biggest stars of his era, and a man known for as much for his work behind the scenes as he is for being in front of it. When the history books talk about the most important person to the internet wrestling community, no, the entire world of professional wrestling, this man will be at the top of the list. I'm, of course, talking about myself, the leader of a WrestleMania brand that has existed for 8 years to this point, and single-handedly the most important in E-Federation history. I also happen to be one of the only people in the audience of you drooling gibbons to actually possess a real wrestling record, 0-2, by the way. I've been in the ring,
Nice.
I've paid my dues, and I've come back to show you what a true hero can look like. But I realized that nominating myself is a little too egotistical for my tastes, so I decided to focus on a man that means almost as much to wrestling as I do, and is such a blight that it can nuke this whole concept all to hell. Just like me, this man is over. Paul Hunter Hearst, Triple H, Helmsley Levesque is going to go down in the history as the most important figure in WWE history. When he and Vince are both dead, and they will both be dead in our lifetime unless Vince finally discovers the secret to immortality buried in the New Mexico desert, Triple H will stand out in front of his father-in-law. Unlike Vince, Triple H wasn't born into the first family of wrestling. In fact, it may be that very fact that created a malicious, calculating bastard like him. He has desired power his entire career from the very first moment he witnessed Ric Flair chopping a bitch. He wanted that for himself and would stop at nothing to get there. He would bury more people in his rise to the top than Stalin, Pol Pot, and anyone else with any kind of ethnic disagreement you can think of. I'm trying to tell you, he's a Nazi. He uses the Iron Cross. The Iron Cross! You can't tell me that's a little on the giant nose. He had an entire stable based on the idea of genetic superiority. I'm a bad guy, but this guy was a monster, and I'm nominating him for the Low Wrestling Hall of Fame because there deserves to be a blight in every list. If I can't nominate myself due to some strange obsession with things like morality or selflessness, whatever the hell those concepts are, I have no idea, then I'll make sure I put the worst monster I can think of on there. In a list of terrible humans in this business that includes rapists, child murderers, and venture capitalists, Triple H stands above them all. So I'd like to take a moment to just list some of his villainous achievements. He simulated necrophilia inside of a church to abuse a tortured, flame-burned man.
Yep.
Married the daughter of the most powerful person in wrestling to gain a position of power while she was drunk out of her mind in a Vegas church.
Yep.
Befriended Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall to simultaneously climb the ladder, but also so he could send Nash and Hall to WCW to create the NWO and destroy the company that wouldn't push him to the top.
Amen.
On the subject of Shawn Michaels, Triple H has turned on him no less than 18 times and refers to himself as the King of Kings, despite Michaels being a devout born-again Christian.
Amen.
Despite being married to Stephanie McMahon, Triple H was found in compromising positions with multiple women in his second run with D-Generation X, which broke up the first time when he almost killed Shawn Michaels. He convinced a little person to be his patsy and take the position of anonymous general manager so he could convince the Nexus to attack Vince McMahon and Bret Hart, putting both authority figures out of action.
Oh, shit.
Daniel Bryan's entire WWE career.
Generation game.
Being so jealous of Undertaker's position of respect that he faced him more times at WrestleMania than any other person in history, and still failing and not counting the first one. Sending CM Punk his dismissal from the company on his wedding day. Getting a family picture taken with Donald Trump without turning to ash immediately. Creating NXT, the United Kingdom Championship, and the North American Championship in 205 Live so we could turn the independents into a territory system to feed the WWE. Personally, my favorite, because it's genius. He even put William Regal, a former tag team partner of his, in charge of the whole thing instead of Dusty Rhodes. God rest his soul. He, along with D-Generation X, showed up in blackface to make fun of the Nation of Domination, and this was in the late 90s. What the fuck? Dropped 3 nuclear bombs on 1940s Korea, starting off a series of wars and skirmishes that last to this day. He brought back Sting just to crush him using the DX at WrestleMania, except NWO and DX were basically two sides of the clique and essentially one stable, so Sting went out there like an idiot. Intentionally hurt the careers of so many people that him burying somebody became a joke. It was so bad that even when he beat someone fairly, people were still looked at in a poor light. He couldn't potentially make someone look good if he tried. Somehow, got the phrase "suck it" over as a catchphrase despite being objectively terrible. Has a bizarre motorcycle fetish despite not being an American badass. And aside from WrestleMania matches, I can't remember any time he's ever come out on a motorcycle, but he keeps dressing like one. Was once saved by Brian Kendrick and Paul London, only to turn on them immediately for no reason other than he could pose by himself. Has more nicknames and titles than I can properly list here, but some of the highlights include the Cerebral Assassin, the Connecticut Blue Blood, and Terror Rising. That last one is especially good because I love puns. He always takes pictures with his new hires like he's collecting Pokemon. When I originally wrote this speech, WrestleMania 34 hadn't happened yet. But now that it has, I'm just going to add a couple more things, like Jeff Jarrett's entire Hall of Fame induction being a gigantic rib because of that one time Angle and Jarrett did a pedigree in the middle of a match and it went nowhere. Not selling for anyone ever. Except he flails like a schoolgirl for Ronda Rousey. Great. Thumbs up. Producing a great NXT show while going head-to-head with ROH. He's so bad, he can't even let his show not go over. One of those things was a lie, P.S., if you want to go back through that list and read them again, but I'll let you figure out which one of them that was. Triple H is single-handedly the worst person in the world and a blight on the entire professional wrestling business. For that reason, I can see no better fit for him than on the LOL Wrestling Hall of Fame if I myself cannot be on it. When you go to bed tonight and you wake up in a cold sweat screaming about the WWF or the Fed poaching all of your favorite wrestlers, I want you to remember precisely who is responsible for that. It's not Vince McMahon. It's Triple H. He's the mastermind. He's the game, and it's already game over for wrestling. Now start singing the game. You know you want to. Mic drop.
To play the game. Don't. Time to play the game. Really inspiring, dude.
Oh, man.
And now you can get
I
back.
don't even know what to say about that because I really feel bad even letting any of that happen, but I guess that's the point. So thank you for ruining something that could have been like tranquil and unblemished. Truly, in Triple H fashion, much like just letting Booker T fucking have one. You could not do that. Could not
You
give us
ruined
just
it,
one.
goddammit.
Could not give us just one. Had to let us suffer. Thank
Dark
you.
Matrix ruined
Damn.
Christmas.
I
But I
had
wouldn't
to
say it's
inject a
completely
lethal
ruined.
dose of poison.
I'm gonna forearm you, my man. Don't test me.
All right,
So,
Salsa,
folks-
do you want to run down our inaugural class, if you can remember them all?
All right, hold on. This is going to be a great test of the memory for me. Goldeneye, Once and for all, let's settle the fucking difference. Ty Dillinger.
Stan.
Stan Dillinger.
That works.
Stan Ty in quotes Dillinger.
That works.
Samoan Driver. You had
Red shoes.
yeah. Oh my God, your speech was way more. Your speech was more roundabout than
What's this,
Goldeneye.
big dog?
And Goldeneye's whole speech was, "I'm gonna be roundabout."
Damn dog.
Ooh, yes.
Roman Reigns!
Last minute induction. Last minute induction. Barking dog. Let's go. How many times has that dog been there for us? Fuck yeah, dude. Someone's outside. That dog. Someone's inside. That dog. Someone's near you. I love it.
It's a big dog.
So, yeah, we got freaking Ty Dillinger. I'm not gonna compromise anymore. We got Red Shoes.
Wow.
We got Triple H, first and foremost, Triple H. Red, of course, has nominated Roman Reigns.
But no, even Marie.
Damn, I almost got away with it. Okay. And then we had, oh my God, the CB radio.
The last 30 minutes of Halloween Havoc.
I didn't even watch that show, and now I don't want to after that
No,
rundown.
what year? What year? That part's the important part.
96.
Yeah, it has to be 96.
96.
He just pointed at
Watch
it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
watch that on the. I'm gonna have to watch that after this.
Yeah, you watch it on the network.
No, hold on.
Just watch
No,
it.
so we're gonna get some fucking clarification. Anybody who's watching this, we're gonna get clarification. We're gonna figure this out. I cannot believe he just pointed at it. Anyway, so let me run this down again. Ty Dillinger, Red Shoes, Eva Marie, the last 30 minutes of Halloween Havoc, 1996, and the fucking shovel man himself, the man who can only lose to the Undertaker at WrestleMania, Triple H.
There we go.
Oh wait, hold on. And the real most important one, that hand that Mae Young gave birth to.
And the mayor gave birth to.
And Henry.
Thank you very much, everyone. That is that has been our Hall of Fame. I'd like to thank Goldeneye, Cobra, Samoan Driver, Dark Matrix, and of course our wonderful host Salsa for doing a lovely job.
Stretch.
This
Love
is
is a stretch.
This was a stretch in terms of me saying, "Hey, let's do a Hall of Fame," because everyone thinks the Hall of Fame this year is going to be rubbish, and then giving everyone no instructions, and it came off better than I thought it would. Speeches were fantastic, lads. Thank you very much, guys.
I can't believe you guys came up with all of that. That was nuts.
I wasn't lying when I said I didn't write anything down.
There's a lot of passion here, folks. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of fame.
Genuinely sweating, was I? And of course, thank you to our red carpet walkers this evening. A guy who's not Drake Bell, Sam Roberts, JTB, and an oven.
Dude, if you haven't seen the Drake Bell video, cut the shit. Just watch it. It's not gonna make you gay.
And on that note, guys, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. And we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.